Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to close your eyes for a second. Unless you're driving, please don't do that. But if you can, picture a text editor, specifically a Markdown editor. What is the immediate image that pops into your head?
It's probably just a blank white box, maybe a blinking cursor up in the top left corner. It's, a digital napkin.
Exactly. It's the digital equivalent of a scrap of paper. It's where you dump your brain before you move the content somewhere real, like a formatted report or a website. It's transient, it's basic. But I've been combing through the source material for this deep dive, specifically looking at an open source project called Easyeditor, and I'm starting to feel like I've been massively underestimating this entire category of software.
You definitely have. If you look at what the GitHub user is Graclinix, that's Ricardo Wagemaker. If you look at what he's built here, calling it a notepad is honestly a bit insulting.
Right.
It's like looking at a fully equipped Swiss Army knife and calling it a toothpick.
That is the exact vibe I got reading through the documentation. They actually used the word powerhouse. Now, usually when I see marketing fluff like powerhouse in an open source read and a file, I kind of roll my eyes. I think, okay, sure, it has bold and italics.
Yeah, the standard feature set.
Exactly. But then I looked at the actual feature list. We aren't just talking about text formatting here. We are talking about bank-grade encryption, high-level calculus rendering, and diagramming tools that usually cost a hefty monthly subscription. And it's all baked into a free tool.
It represents a real convergence. That's really the best way to frame our mission for this deep dive. We are looking at what happens when you take the simplicity of writing plain text and just collide it with the complexity of modern software engineering. Because Easyeditor seems to be designed to solve a very specific, very annoying problem.
Which is?
The fiction of the context switch.
Oh, the context switch. That is the bane of my existence.
Right. Think about the workflow of a modern developer or a technical writer, even a student. You're writing documentation, and suddenly you need a diagram to explain a concept. So what do? You stop writing. You open a graphics tool.
You draw some boxes.
You draw the boxes, you export the image, you import the image, and then you need to save your work to the server. So you stop writing again, open a terminal, run your Git commands.
It's awful.
And then you realize this document has sensitive data. Stop writing again. Zip it with a password.
It's exhausting just listening to you describe it. By the time you get back to the text editor, you've completely forgotten what you were trying to say in the first place.
Exactly. Easyeditor asks a fundamental question. Why aren't we doing all of that in the exact same window?
So that is our mission today. We're going to figure out how this tool manages to blend visual design, heavy math, serious security, and developer workflows into a single interface, and how it does that without becoming a bloated mess. Because that's the risk, right? When you try to do everything, you usually end up doing nothing well.
That is the classic feature creep trap. But as we dig into the architecture, specifically the tech stack they chose, I think you'll see they managed to sidestep that elegantly.
All right, let's start with the surface level, the visual experience. The core promise here is that it is a Markdown editor with real-time preview. Now, to the uninitiated, that sounds pretty basic. I type, I see text. Why is the real-time part emphasized so heavily in the docs?
It's all about the feedback loop. In the old days, and by old days I mean literally just a few years ago for many of us, documentation was a write, compile, check cycle.
Yeah.
You write your Markdown syntax, you save the file, you switch to a browser or a viewer, you hit refresh, and you see if you broke the formatting.
And if you messed up a table, it looks like a train wreck. Columns are misaligned, text is spilling over everywhere.
Precisely. That latency, even if it's just 5 seconds of waiting, breaks your flow state. Easyeditor is designed to eliminate that micro-latency entirely. You're seeing the final rendered product instantly as you type. Headings, tables, images. It keeps your brain in creation mode rather than maintenance mode.
But it's not just rendering bold text and headers. This is where I kind of got stuck down the rabbit hole. The documentation highlights rich diagram support. Specifically, it mentions Mermaid and UML.
Yes. This is massive for the technical crowd.
Okay, play devil's advocate for me for a second. Let's say I'm a project manager, not a coder. Why do I care about Mermaid? Why don't I just drag and drop boxes in PowerPoint like a normal person?
Because dragging boxes is fragile. If you update the business process next week, you have to manually move 20 arrows. You have to realign everything so it doesn't look sloppy. It's just tedious.
That's true.
Mermaid and UML, which stands for Unified Modeling Language, they allow you to define diagrams as text. You literally type A points to B, and the software draws the perfect arrow for you.
Brian Easyeditor renders that live.
Instantly, right there in the preview pane. So you can create complex sequence diagrams, class diagrams for software architecture, or Just standard organizational flowcharts without your hands ever leaving the keyboard.
Hmm.
And here's the real kicker. Because it's text, it's version controlled. You can track changes to your diagrams, exactly like you track changes to your code. You can see exactly who changed the arrow from A to B and when.
That is a huge shift in mindset. You're treating the diagram as code, not as a static picture.
Exactly. Docs as code. That's the core philosophy here.
They didn't stop at diagrams, though. I saw mention of KTeX integration. Now, I haven't touched calculus since college, but the docs say this renders beautiful mathematical notations.
It does. And this is where standard text editors fail miserably. If you try to write a complex equation, say a quadratic formula or a heavy physics integral in a standard notepad, it just looks like a mess of slashes, carets, and parentheses.
It just looks like computer noise.
Completely unreadable. KTeX is a library that takes those text commands and renders them into print-quality mathematical typography. It looks like it belongs in a textbook. So if you were a data scientist documenting a new algorithm or a student writing a thesis, Easyeditor handles that complexity natively. You don't need to open a separate math program, take a screenshot, and paste it in.
So we've got flowcharts for the managers, calculus for the scientists, and then there's just the vibe of the whole thing. The feature list specifically mentions stunning themes and table support.
Don't underestimate the power of aesthetics in a workspace.
Oh, I don't. I literally can't work if my editor looks ugly. It's a character flaw.
It's not a flaw. It's about cognitive load. Formatting tables in plain Markdown manually is a nightmare. You're hitting the space bar trying to align pipes perfectly.
Yes.
It's so tedious. Easyeditor handles the visual rendering of tables cleanly. It makes the document feel structured without you having to fight the spacing. And the themes, having a dark mode or high contrast mode, it allows you to own the workspace. It stops feeling like a temporary scratch pad and starts feeling like a studio.
A studio. I really like that framing. Okay, let's pop the hood. Because a pretty interface is nice, but if the engine is garbage, none of that matters. You spent some time looking at the build architecture. How is this thing actually running?
It's built on a very modern triumvirate of access. That's probably the best way to describe it. They give you 3 distinct ways to run the tool, which is pretty rare. Usually you just get a download file and good luck.
Right. So what's behind door number 1?
Door number 1 is the native desktop application. It runs on Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. But the interesting part is how it's built. It uses a framework called Tori.
I've heard of Tori. That's the competitor to Electron, right?
It is, and the distinction matters significantly for performance. Electron apps, think of things like Slack or VS Code, they're essentially running a whole web browser inside a window. They can get really heavy, they eat your RAM. Tori is different. It uses the underlying operating system's web view, and the back-end logic is written in Rust.
Rust. That's the high-performance language everyone in the tech space is obsessed with right now.
For very good reason. It's memory safe and incredibly fast. If you look at the language breakdown in the Easyeditor repository, you see this massive block of TypeScript. It's about 88.1% of the code base. That handles the beautiful interface we just talked about.
Right.
But underneath that, there's this critical 0.9% of the code that is Rust. That tiny percentage is the engine.
So it's a hybrid approach, high-speed back-end, flexible front-end.
Exactly. It keeps the application lightweight. You get all the powerhouse features without your laptop fan sounding like a jet engine taking off.
Okay, so that's the desktop app. But then there's option 2, which I admit I got irrationally excited about, run with Docker.
You and the sysadmins both.
It just says one command in the docs. Why is that such a big deal for a text editor?
Because it decouples the tool from your specific machine. If you use Docker, you are spinning up a containerized version of the editor. You access it via a web browser at localhost port 3024.
So I'm hosting the editor effectively as a server on my own machine.
Or on a shared server. Imagine you have a team of developers. You could host an instance of Easyeditor on a shared server inside your company's private network. Everyone accesses the exact same tool, the same version, with no installation headaches on their local laptops. It turns the personal notepad into an internal service.
That's incredibly smart. And then option 3 is the pure web app.
Right. No install, no Docker, just open the browser and go. Perfect for when you're on a borrowed machine, a library computer, or a Chromebook.
I also noticed and this is for the tinkerers listening out there, that the build system is very exposed. I saw scripts like build.docker.eshe and build-tari.bat right in the file list.
It's completely transparent. If you have Node.js, NPM, and Rust installed, you can build this thing from source yourself. You aren't relying on the developer to release a binary. If they stop updating it tomorrow, you can still build it. That's the ultimate safety net of open source.
Speaking of workflow and updates, let's talk about the actual day-to-day. Because we've established I can write pretty documents and I can run the app efficiently. But let's say I'm a developer. My life revolves around Git. Usually the workflow is I write docs in my editor, I save, I alt-tab to the terminal, I type git add, git commit, git push.
The alt-tab dance. It's a complete context killer. You lose your train of thought every single time you switch windows.
But Easyeditor seems to want to cut in on that dance.
It does. It has native Git integration built right in.
What does that actually look like in practice?
It means the editor is entirely aware of your version control. You can load a repository, you can stage your changes, you can write your commit message, and you can push your updates to GitHub all from inside the Easyeditor interface.
So it's effectively an IDE for writers, an integrated development environment, but for pros.
That is exactly what it is. It treats pros the same way we treat code. If you finish documenting a new API endpoint, you don't need to leave the environment to save that version. You click commit, and you just keep writing.
That is huge for keeping documentation fresh. I feel like the main reason docs get outdated in the real world is simply because the friction to update them is just high enough that we say, I'll do it later.
And later never comes.
Never.
By lowering the friction, Easyeditor naturally increases the frequency of updates. It makes doing the right thing the easy thing.
Now, not everyone lives in Git. Sometimes you just need to send a finished report to the boss who doesn't know what a repository is. The docs mention export power.
Right. It exports seamlessly to HTML, plain TXT, and PDF.
So I can do all my nerd stuff, my mermaid diagrams, my KTeX math, my Git commits, but then hit a button and spit out a polished PDF for the board meeting.
That's the bridge. You get to work in a developer-centric environment, but you produce output that the rest of the business can actually consume.
Now, up to this point in my research, I was thinking, okay, this is a really solid, feature-rich editor. It's convenient. But then I saw something in the feature list that made me stop and squint. It felt totally out of place, like finding a biometric scanner on a lunchbox.
You found the SSTP.
SSTP, Simple Security Text Protocol.
It sounds so innocuous, doesn't it? Simple security.
It does. But then I read the actual specs. AES 256 CBC encryption.
That is bank-grade encryption. That is the industry standard for securing top-secret data.
Why? Why does a Markdown editor need the same level of security as my banking app?
Because Clinics clearly envisions this tool being used for more than just public read-AMI files. Think about what else you write in a text editor. Personal journals, proprietary algorithms, server configurations, passwords, the next big app idea that you really don't want anyone to steal.
Ideally, people aren't writing passwords in plain text, but yeah, it happens constantly. We write down sensitive things all the time.
Exactly. And in a normal editor, if someone gets access to your hard drive, they can just open those files. They're plain text. They run a simple search command, and they see everything. Your thoughts, your secrets, your company data.
Right. It's literally called plain text for a reason. Anyone can read it.
Easyeditor's SSTP feature encrypts the actual content of the file. Even if I steal your laptop and pull the hard drive, all I see is a scrambled mess of alphanumeric garbage. I can't read your trade secrets without the encryption key.
So it transforms the tool from a basic notepad into a secure vault.
It really does. And this isn't just some legacy feature they tacked on years ago and forgot about. I was looking at the commit history in the repository to see how active this project is.
What did you find?
There was a commit from just 2 days ago with a message, updated cryptography for SysDP.
That's significant.
It's crucial. In the world of cryptography, old means broken. If you aren't updating your security libraries, you are vulnerable. The fact that the developer is actively patching the crypto layer tells me they take this feature very seriously. It's a core value proposition of the tool, not a gimmick to get downloads.
It's fascinating because it widens the potential audience so much. It's not just for developers anymore. It's for journalists protecting confidential sources. It's for researchers dealing with sensitive patient data.
Anyone who needs true zero-knowledge privacy for their writing.
And all of this is free.
100% free and open source.
The README claims over 130 features. That feels like a massive project to manage. Who is actually running the ship?
The repository lists 2 main contributors. GM Clinics, who we mentioned, Ricardo Wagemaker, and Lewis 1998, which is Lewis Halstead.
2 people.
Just two people build a tool that genuinely competes with paid enterprise software. It's a testament to the power of the open source model. They focus on the features that matter to them, and because they are developers themselves, they build tools that developers actually want to use.
And it seems incredibly alive. You mentioned the crypto update from 2 days ago, but I also saw they are already on release version 1.6.5.
Which was released just last week. According to the source material, this isn't abandonware. It's an active breathing project. And because it is open source, they are always asking for help. The docs explicitly mention how to contribute.
So if there's a feature missing for your specific workflow, say you want to add a new export format, you don't have to file a customer support ticket and wait 2 years. You can just fork the repository, write the TypeScript yourself, and submit a pull request.
You get to be a co-creator of the tool you use every day. That is the ultimate level of customization.
So let's zoom out a bit as we wrap up. We started this deep dive asking if a text editor could be more than just a place to dump unformatted thoughts.
And I think the answer is a resounding yes. Easyeditor represents a totally new category of tool. It's a knowledge environment.
A knowledge environment. That's a great term for it.
It's a bridging the gap. It's visual thanks to Mermaid. It's mathematical thanks to KTeX. It's secure thanks to SSTP. And it's deeply integrated into the developer workflow with Git and Docker. It removes the friction from being smart.
It really forces you to look at your own setup. I'm sitting here thinking about my computer dock. I have a separate writing app, a diagramming app, a terminal window, a password manager.
And Easyeditor asks why.
Exactly. Why am I paying the context switching tax 10 times a day when the technology exists to unify it all?
We often just accept friction because that's just how it's always been done. But tools like this challenge that assumption. They prove that you don't have to sacrifice power for simplicity. You really can have both.
Here is a final provocative thought I want to leave you with. We've seen infrastructure as code. We're seeing diagrams as code. With tools like Easyeditor adding bank rate encryption and native version control directly into the writing interface, are we moving toward a future where our documentation is treated with the exact same complexity, security, and rigor as the software code itself?
It certainly looks that way. And honestly, it's about time.
Something to mull over the next time you stare at that blinking cursor. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Easyeditor.
Keep learning.
Catch you next time.